Hello everyone, Evelina here, Feel, Grow, Live. This session is going to be slightly different. This video is going to be slightly different than usual. There's no agenda and it's going to be a free flow of thoughts. I'm going to be learning with you how to think about certain things without the labels and without a script or agenda or certain outside constraints. So if you are curious about your nature, if you're curious about your mind, and you're trying to tame the chaos of your internal experience, you're definitely in the right place. So you may want to stick around because it's a different thing. So I'm not going to force any framework on you. I'm going to share with you what I'm really passionate about, which is the nature of human mind. There will be a topic though, and the topic here is identity. Okay, and I'm not talking about the outer identity. I'm not talking about your job. I'm not talking about your roles in society. I'm not talking about your opinions. We will touch on those, but I am going to be talking about the inner identity. If you're trying to do any sort of work on yourself, and you can't really get away without doing, you can't really get away from it, you know. If you want to have a conscious life, mindful life in any sort of way, you need to do the inner work. So it's part of the inner work mission here. It's for you to get curious about yourself. It's for you to get less overwhelmed, to find some clarity as to who you are, because you are the beginning and the start of your reality, right? So you are operating from yourself, you're not operating from the outside self. And the more conscious you become about yourself, the easier life gets. The self-awareness is really fundamental. It's not only bodily awareness, but it's also inner awareness, and this is what we're after here. So yeah, identity, inner identity, right? Inner identity. I'm going to be doing my fabulous drawings, so they're very arty, so enjoy. I have thought about identity a lot because I have been around for quite a while on this planet, you might say. I'm sort of halfway through the path, and I have lived in 3 countries for quite a considerable amount of time. I have 1 marriage, because obviously the way you see yourself, it's the way how you operate. Okay? And we need to understand ourselves. We need some kind of anchor into our reality to know how to act and behave. And what I have come to realize is that we act out our unconscious reality for most of our lives. And our environment determines how we behave. But when we don't become conscious about who we are internally and the nature of our mind, we are floating and being impacted by the forces outside of ourselves, which are not really aligned with us. Because reality is so complex, that life is so complex, and we get through a lot in life, right? A lot of experiences, and now you don't decide how to act. We are being obviously manipulated by everything we watch, everything we consume, and you might think, oh, I'm not like that, I just watch something and then I disregard it. No, you've got 85%, and I'm being really generous here, 85% of your experience of how you operate in the world is unconscious. So knowing the forces within you and being able to tame them, change them so they can serve you, because otherwise some other agenda is being manifested and brought into life, right? So knowing this inner stuff, inner realm of your psyche and of your mind, is really the difference between having a fulfilling life and being sort of happy with your experience, and like fulfilled is the best word I can think of, and having a sense of satisfaction and progress and growth, because you're here to grow, to find meaning in life, to find your purpose, why you're here, is really the difference between that as opposed to being helpless, overwhelmed. You know, when people say, I've lost my mind, yes, exactly, because we are renting ourselves out to everything we consume, and we are being impacted by external forces all the time. So identity is really important if you're trying to have a conscious experience, something we need to think about and decide for ourselves how we want to go about it. No one can really tell you how to go about being yourself, because the goal here is to be authentic, right? So being the real you. What that means is having a life that agrees with you, who you truly are in your heart, in your soul, and that is aligned with your nature, right? Because what is happening is that those outside forces, as I said, everything you watch, everything you're exposed to, other people, are really impactful, and their agenda is very different to yours. So this is about having intention to be authentic, right? Intention is really important. Really important. So knowing where you're going with your life. And you don't want to, what's the word? You don't want to outsource this decision, because we do outsource this decision, who we are, and we're getting manipulated, and then when we're being told who we are, what to feel, how to feel, and what to do, what's not to do, what, right? So that's, you can say in the political sense, that's propaganda. So at the moment, you know, when you ask people who you are, people will give you their job, husband, wife, right? So status, fiance, student, you know, unemployed, and a lot of different things that have nothing to do with your inner identity, okay? So we're going to be talking about the development of our identity. So when you are born, when you're a child, you have a very strong sense of identity, babies do, right? And they get their needs met by the means of a scream or by their cuteness. We are evolutionarily equipped with the stuff to get our needs met. And their physical reality is their reality. Obviously, I'm talking on the surface because no one really knows. But their identity is being very much determined at the very, very beginning when they enter the world, when you enter the world, right? And then there you are. Then you become a toddler. Again, your physical reality is everything, and you act out that reality, that physical reality, okay? So your environment is pretty much, you are manipulating your environment. I love that about toddlers and small children. They just are, right? So before their sort of sense of social self develops and they're being told at school or by the family members who you are a brother, you are a sister, or you belong to this class and this is your teacher, so you the student, or etc., etc. They have no concept of that. So with time, you get a lot of different things, a lot of different labels. And again, that's very useful, of course, in some sense, but in some sense, it comes at a cost of suppressing their true nature, because if you leave them to their own devices, children, they would be doing a completely different thing. They would be playing, so they would be acting their soul. They would be free playing with no awareness of time, right? And the only sort of inner compass would be tired and hungry. That's it. And what is there to play with? That would be that. That would be the only constraint. And then with time, obviously, we become this little part of this big machine. And then around age 7, we become more aware as to who we are in a social context. We become self-conscious, right? So this is where kids start to really have awareness about social contacts, about their relationships. They start using words like friendships, or they start formulate friendships, right? So they start to have some sort of context, and that depends on the experience, but this is how the identity is being formulated from the outside. From the outside it comes, the more we have to suppress our inner nature. So we're being told by the world who we are, okay? And look at teenagers, a similar story on a different scale, but they trying to fit in, we try to fit in as teenagers, so behave and act and say things that will keep us as a part of a gang, of a tribe, right? A group of friends. It becomes very, very important. But I'm going to assume that your childhood was not perfect. If it was perfect, that's great, if you know who you are and if you had all your needs met. But the reality is, for most of us, that's not the case. So what seems to be happening, I'll tell you how creative you are, because in childhood and in teenagehood, what happens is that you formulate what's called survival identity, okay? And so you become the version of you that is being formulated is the version of you that is required to belong, not to be kicked out of the tribe. And the first tribe is your family. So that's the first system, right? So you enter this system, any sort of system, but it's a system and has rules. And it's a very consistent system. It's well established. Right? And then you, as a child, very quickly, you work out what you need to say, behave, what you can't say, what goes, what doesn't, and you become that version. And not only are you being told, obviously, right, okay, oh, you have to be the big brother, or you have to be the big sister, or, you know, you're being treated in a certain way. And the way you're being treated, emotionally, psychologically, verbally, that sort of forges your identity. And that is your survival identity, okay? And I would say that's the first 2 decades. Sometimes it's beyond that. Times are changing, because in the past, there was a lot more freedom, right? So even if you had to be a certain way at school, you could come home and be free from what was happening at school. You had a respite. Today, there is no respite. You have to be a certain way all the time, because there's online reality, and it's very important to the kids and to adults as well, okay? So this is the sort of major shift that happens between the ages of 7 to sort of 14, 13, 14. I mean, it's sort of more or less, it's not a fixed time. It really depends, and some people go through it earlier. Obviously, you can say it's puberty, right? When you enter puberty, things are shifting in you and you're changing. Your awareness is growing. You're growing into yourself more. So the less pressure you have from the outside as to who you need to be and how you need to behave, so you don't have to perform something, the better. But the reality is, in the families which are far from healthy, right? This is our system and this is our civilization and our culture, uncultured culture, as I call it. But as I said, the reality is, so the process continues. Your identity keeps developing at the cost of your authenticity. Okay, so you can't really do what you want, be as you want, and there is very little support as to how to behave, because you get a template as to you need to be this way in order to belong to the system, right? And then you enter another system, which is your school, and that changes. And very slowly, our mind, which is part of our identity, which we're gonna get into, right, is enslaved, right? So there's no freedom anymore. There's no freedom. And you know the school system, how it works, right? You sit at the little desk and everything is scheduled. Every day is the same throughout the whole year. You get a bit of holiday, but really you're so exhausted from it all that it's just a bit of breathing space, but there's no natural rhythm in it when it comes to human spirit and human mind, human psyche. There's nothing natural about the system we have created when it comes to our nature, in relation to our nature. It's very fake and performative. And you're being told, oh, you need to be successful in life, or you need to be doing this, or you need to be doing that. And I'm not saying everything is useless, but what I'm saying is that there's a huge cost that people pay individually, that we pay individually when it comes to our potential. Because free thinking, creativity is not supported. Everything that people really enjoy and live for, you know, we worship things like productivity. We worship things like success, status, money, without really understanding our nature. So we're doing that, we're building our identity on the basis of some kind of artificial concept, because it's all artificial to human soul and to human spirit and to who you truly are, to your authenticity. Because you need to certainly constantly judged as to how you perform, you know, with grades, you know, you're being reprimanded, you're being or you're being ignored. So there's this natural process of developing your identity, your inner identity, is really suppressed. And that's the saddest thing about our times. But this is a very good news. When you start bringing this awareness into your inner identity and who you truly are, because you are the only person that can take charge of it and can change it, but you need to become aware of yourself, right? So your will has been enslaved, but it doesn't have to be that way. You are free to make other choices for yourself. You are free to withdraw mentally and psychologically and emotionally and stop being codependent on the outside thing. And that's the whole thing about self-transformation, that it's all about becoming independent, not being dependent on, or I need to be like them, or I need to have what they have, etc., etc. So there is a certain level of withdrawal from this. It's a process, it's slow, etc., but you are in charge of this, right? That is the biggest takeaway from this. That's my intention. Your intention could be completely different. Take whatever resonates, but I'm on the mission to show people that they can reclaim their identity, their authentic identity, who they truly are in their spirit, in their soul, and in their unsocialized mind. So this is the space of your mind, let's call it, okay? And your mind has levels. And here you've got your body, right? So your identity, your this is your physical identity. So that's your body. And this is your mind, okay, as a space, you know, and forget the ratio. So when you little, you operate from your body only. I'm hungry, I need the toilet. You don't need the toilet, you just pee yourself, right? So your physical identity, but then you've got psychological identity, right? You've got your psychology, and your mind has a lot of layers, okay? And I'm going to divide it. It depends on who you are. You know, some people, their mind is chaotic. Some people, their minds are really calm. It depends, but this is where we are aware. So it's really not that difficult. And bringing awareness to the realm of your mind is the goal here and in life, and working through different layers and different things, right? So for now, we're just going to be talking about your higher mind, and your lower mind. Most people operate from the lower mind, their identity, so the physical identity and then the psychological identity. You know, people talk about consciousness and awareness, of course, right? But this is where we are. Most people operate from this. And this is full of, when you ask someone who you are, they operate from the labels, right? So I am. So all the labels. And I think you're going to agree with me when I say that it's overwhelming how many labels we can choose today, right? When it comes to our status, what we do, what we're good at. And when it comes to mental health, again, a lot of labels. So that you've got the psychological, mental, and emotional self, and we choose to label ourselves because just being is too difficult for us, I think. And we need to know who we are. We need to understand who we are. We get very attached to our identity and how we perceive ourselves in order to belong to the society. But the society became chaotic. A simplicity of life has been lost, and I'm on the mission to bring it back, right? Because it's overwhelming and confusing to be a human being today, and I want to push back on that. And you need to start pushing back on that too, because it shouldn't be that difficult to be a human being. I think complexity and confusion is one of the things why the systems are in place, because people, you know, people are just confused and exhausted, right? Because there's no clarity, there's no transparency. So this is all about trying to bring some clarity and transparency into the inner experience and identity. So labels, different labels. You know, when it comes to mental health, you can say, I am anxious, I am depressed, I am bipolar. I have a history of that, right? So we talk about, we want to say what we are. I don't know why, actually. We are very much attached to how we present ourselves. This is probably because we've been told, right? You need to know what to say. You know, how you talk is really important. So we come up with these things that have nothing to do with who we truly are, because the truth is we are being disconnected from our authentic nature of just being a free spirit, a free soul. We don't know what our authentic nature is, so we come up with labels, status, disorders, roles, various things. And I have another one, right? And obviously, some of it is serving us. I'm not saying it doesn't, because it sort of fuels life. But we're at the point where it really is too complicated at this point. People are lost in all of this, okay? And this is very, very much ego-based. Because this is what ego is. Ego is a force within your mind, and everyone has an ego, where ego is very much black and white, rigid, loves being right about itself, so will whisper in your mind or shout, do that, don't do that, you can't say that or say that, or whatever the ego's agenda is. And that's very different for a lot of people. Like, that's different for people in the sense that our egos differ, how they act out, how they being act out in what you say about yourself and how you behave. But there are patterns of the ego, right? So you can categorize the egos, you can put people in groups, but that's another story. But I just want you to know that when you operate from this level of mind, because that's the level of mind, this is where you're free, and this is where you are not free. Okay, because this is the entry door, but the entry door to you, and everything you consume, everything you read, everyone you listen to, this is where they get to you. And this is the compulsion for education, information, right? This is where this is where politics resides, right? Because ego wants to know, ego wants you to belong, right? Ego wants you to survive. Your ego is a force that wants to be in charge of you. So it's your master in a way, right? And ego is rigid, and I am this, I am that, and there's no other way. And ego wants to be right. So once you establish, I am on the red, I am on the green side, or whatever politically, you know, whatever, left or right or center, even this, right? It's just the same thing. So it's all about labels and very artificial concepts. So this is what I want to highlight here, that it's all artificial, it's fake, right? It's fake. This is all fake. This is fake news, because that's not your full nature. That's not nature at all. That is civilization. It's very crowded here. Oh, it even sort of came up like this, right? It's very crowded in here. And the amount of environments you're exposing yourself to, this is how crowded it gets in there, right? This is the chatter. This is the different narratives that you're trying to live at the same time, right? So there's no autonomy here, because in here you've got autonomy. In here, you have no autonomy. You don't get to decide. Other people decide who you are with labels they give you and with things to say or not to say, right? Free speech is a very good example. We're going to leave that for now. But this is exhausting. That's all I'm saying. This is exhausting. And in here, you are disconnected from your body. So this is where you're disconnected from your authentic identity, okay? You're completely disconnected, because your opinions and your roles, your labels, your status, your politics, your ego matters more than your full authentic identity, which has been suppressed anyway, right? And this is a state of disconnection. From the authentic self. Because you have a heart. When it comes to the fake artificial constructs in your mind, each narrative will tell you what your body is. Is it important? Is it not important? What to eat? What's not to eat? When to have fun? How to have fun? What's productive? What's good? You know, religion, another one. I love that. Religion. In here you've got religion, in here you've got God. Whatever that is for you, right? Universe, nature, whatever. But in here they tell you who you are. So if you are operating from this level of your lower mind, not only you don't live fully, but it's exhausting, frustrating. Because if you are not integrated, and again, I'm not saying that this is all bad, but it's too much of it. It's excess. It's excess. And that's all being confirmed by what you watch and affirmed every day. Think about the amount of hours you operate in this. And think about the amount of hours you operate on this side, where you're actually free from this and you are your whole self, right? So your identity at this point, I'm going to remove that. Right, so at this point, your identity, the goal here, the path here, is to integrate your identity. Right, to integrate identity. What that means is to integrate your higher mind, lower mind, because you need it, you know, like to survive in this world. Some call it a matrix, whatever works for you. And then you have your body. I'm going to do this. You have your body. With your heart. It's about integrating it. So, creating a state of wholeness. And creating like a whole identity, live from whole identity. The way to do it is very different for everyone. It's very different for each person, right? So at the moment, people are talking about activating their heart. We are living in a state of disconnection from our hearts. Our bodies have been through so much of very intense experiences and chronic stress that our hearts are shut, right? Because when you live in this survival identity for too long, your body goes into a state of disconnection. You slowly shutting off different parts of yourself to survive because it's very exhausting. There's very little free energy here. That's why people are exhausted. They have no energy for anything else, mental, psychological, emotional, right? And you're disconnected from your body and from your higher mind, so from your heart, from who you truly are. Because higher mind is creativity, flow, joy. Maybe I'll mention emotions as well, because in here you're completely disconnected. In survival, you are completely disconnected from your emotions. This is how you preserve energy, which you are running on empty anyway, right? So ask yourself, which attachments can I loosen up and let go of? What is not important? What am I feeding? Draw a circle like this and two halves of it. And yes, ask yourself, what labels do you have in here? What labels? Political, religious, different communities, anything that is not related to creativity, flow, joy, everything that has time constraints. And you're going to see why you are exhausted and disconnected. Because, as I said, if you're disconnected from your body, you know, people have certain diets, they disagree with them, they get ill. I think we passed the idea of anything goes. If you're eating crappy food or if you overindulge in poison too often, your body is not going to keep up at getting rid of it, right? So if you're carrying extra weight, if you are being clogged up, if your gut is going crazy, that's a sign that you are completely disconnected and you're not eating the right food for you, where you live, you know, adjusted to your lifestyle. So really getting into your body and understanding. And it's a process, okay? So don't be too harsh on yourself and do it gently, because ego will fight like hell. Because ego is the force in the psyche that wants to exist. So at the moment, if this is your identity, right, you're going to have to be really localized how to navigate this, okay? And you can't do it without your body. You can't just say, right, okay, I'm just going to remove this, I'm going to unsubscribe from this or from that. You can't do it without your body. For your physical reality is your first level of your identity. And you need to integrate the physical and psychological and emotional, right? So at the moment, you're very much disconnected from your emotions. And the way to know it is ask yourself, when was the last time you felt joy or inspiration or you felt creative, right? That was probably a long time ago. You do feel, however, lower emotions because you've got higher emotions here in the sort of higher emotions, right? Free emotions, higher emotions like inspiration, joy, gratitude, etc. People say, oh, you know, you need to start gratitude practice. Like, there's no access. Your nervous system will not allow you to do this, because when you're surviving, your nervous system is doing what is working and what's familiar. Because for a lot of people, to be free is very unfamiliar. And your nervous system is a prediction machine. So it's predicting for you. It makes a decision for you. And in survival identity, your body is doing what it can, and you will never sort of be the master of your body. It's only possible when you integrate your identity, your physical identity and your higher mind. And you start opening up and you start expanding your identity and start living outside of the labels of the ego. Okay? And then you can integrate yourself and you can go to the higher self, people call it as well. I like that, higher self, actually. But you can't do it without your body, because if you are poisoning your body with fear, fake memberships to different things, roles, obligations, this is how you're being manipulated, right? And various other things, your ego and your body will not allow you to do anything else. You need to start being in charge of yourself by having an intention And you need to do it gradually, you need to do it methodically. No one can tell you, how to get into your body. You need to start being in your body. Yes, it's movement, but what kind of movement? No one can tell you. It is any movement that you do beyond 20 minutes, 60 minutes, or whatever, depending where you are. But you need to start moving. You need to start connecting with your body, right? Or maybe you're moving too much and it hijacks you. But at the moment, your identity is hijacked and it's fake, artificial. This is just a made up shit, right? And has nothing to do with your nature, with your true nature, with your body, enjoying life, being in love with life, allowing love to come in, loving yourself, taking care of yourself. Because this is not that reality. In that reality, you're a resource, right? And you're feeding a certain system and you're here to serve the system, not yourself. But in here, you only serve yourself. And if you're a parent and you're thinking, oh my God, I can't do it, I've got children, right? Think about it, what sort of parent you wanted to have when you were a child. You wanted your parent to be stressed, running around like a headless chicken and being emotionally absent? Or would you like to have a parent who lived like this or like this? There's your path. Because to be thinking that our children need us to be exhausted, not being present. And here you cannot be present in the present moment because you're either thinking about the past or what's going to happen tomorrow. You're either thinking about the meeting you had or the meeting you're going to have. You're either thinking about what happened last night or thinking about how you're going to get to work tomorrow or what job you're going to find or what test you have, etc. So shifting your identity in the direction of integrating it is a process, okay? I'm going to write the process here. Not an event. Unless you have a near-death experience, but it's a process. And it has layers. Physical, emotional, and psychological. Right? Or you can say mental. Take what resonates. Tell me what you think about it. I'd really like to know what you think about it. If I made you think differently, if I made one person to think differently, I'll be a happy person today, right? So I know it looks messy, but this is life. This is your inner reality part of it, right? And we're not focusing on the problem, we're seeing the potential. Remember that. Think of this as a potential. Think of it as a goal. Because your identity should change. It should be very responsive to who you are. And you change, you mature, you explore, different parts of you are being revealed. One thing is for sure, you are free, you are creative, there is flow and there's joy in life. And you're supposed to have all those things. So think about it as a process. Think about yourself, create some space where you can actually explore yourself and these ideas. And, how much of your thinking is not yours? How many of your opinions are someone else's opinions? Because you're going to find that actually a lot of what we say, it's someone else's opinion. There's nothing in there, there's no substance. Any party, any social gathering you go to, any podcasts, not any, maybe not all of them, right? But it's all about opinions. There's no freedom, there's no creativity, there's no flow. And you need to harness, you need to be the master of your reality, because otherwise you're going to create a lot of suffering for yourself and a lot of pain, and that's not needed. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And there will be pain, there will be stuff in life that it's difficult, but there will be nothing that you can't handle. You know, people have handled very, very difficult stuff, atrocious stuff. So think about it as a creative space. Your mind is creative in itself, right? And you creating yourself with your thoughts. This is an invitation to explore yourself. So if you're new to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and drop me a comment what you think, and enjoy. Thank you very much. See you later.